At the trigger of lustful thoughts, the brain is activated to facilitate the release of certain hormones which puts in you the hunger to satisfy them. The passion driven by lust is often accompanied by the urge to satisfy these hormones. As soon as this satisfaction occurs, the hormonal surge leading to this passion decays, and it's often in this condition that our eyes open clearly, our thinking is back to normal, and in some cases, we start to regret the things we have done. This is when the devil's laughter is heard. A certain man was born to save his people from the hands of their enemies who oppressed them for years. He was born with an unimaginable strength to defend his people. With no weapons in his hand, he was able to send a full-grown lion to the grave. With only the jawbone of a donkey, he was able to send 3,000 enemies to their creator at a spot, among other unimaginable things he did with his strength. His enormous power, however, is tied to his hair, and he was instructed that as long as he lived, his hair should never be cut, else his strength is lost. His enemies have tried to stop him but failed. They had to re-strategize. They needed to know the source of this strength and then attack him from where it springs. They could not achieve this all by themselves, so they decided to attack indirectly. A girl came into his life. He fell in love with this girl, and as time went on, she started demanding to know the secret of his supernatural strength. He lied and lied. For every lie he said, she would do just that, and then call the enemies to besiege him. He would triumph over them, leaving her in disappointment and shame. She inquired persistently till he finally revealed the source of his strength. While he was asleep, she had his hair completely shaved and then invite his enemies again. That was how he was captured. His both eyes were plucked out and he was tortured severely. His rational thinking ability was trashed. He couldn't see behind all the attempts his girl made to bring him down, a possible result of lust. Lust has been the one reason many great men never attained their maximum potentials. It has equally been the reason several men remained in mediocrity. A man born to save his people, due to lust, lost his purpose and the capacity to achieve it. His people remained in captivity, suffering and oppression. If only you know the positive impact your fruits shall make on your people, you shall utilize them properly and stop wasting your life. Happy are those who learnt early in life how to use their sex drive for good and not succumb to the passion of lust. These men are usually unstoppable. A quote by Miyamoto Musashi, the legendary Japanese samurai, shall be helpful in this video to deal on ways to curb the passion of lust. Do not seek pleasure for its own sake. Miyamoto Musashi was a legendary Japanese swordsman, philosopher and martial artist who lived during the 17th century. His philosophy based on teaching young people the ideal lifestyle to embrace in order to become a better person for themselves as well as the world they live in. It can be seen that Musashi himself was a better person for the world he lived in, and not just the world he lived in. His philosophy has served as a great inspiration in our era, hundreds of years after he has passed on. Engaging in any activity solely for the pleasure it shall bring is one thing he cautioned against. Seeking pleasure for its own sake is usually an embodiment of a purposeless life. No one who goes out seeking pleasure shall ever come to the satisfying attainment of it, and not just this, such a person is bound to lead an average life, if not a life below average, because it is a known fact that the things that bring pleasure usually never leads to greatness. The more pleasure you acquire, the more your brain craves for it, and the more you respond to these cravings, the more you veer farther away from your purpose. The more time you waste, one day you wake up and days of youth is gone. You are left to face the outcome of the decisions you made while still a youth. Every great man you see today, except for those privileged enough to be born into a great family, none was ever born great. Every man was born to be great, but your line of thoughts would influence your choices, which ends up leading you to making decisions that either makes you great or keeps you in mediocrity. To conquer the world, you must learn to conquer yourself first. A good place to start is by keeping your urges and your hormones under your control and never becoming a slave to them. To be able to do this more effectively, you should be able to control thoughts, directing it where you would have it go and taking it away from where it should not be. Not having a purpose in life is usually what drives people into doing all manner of things in pursuit for pleasure. All the things done in pursuit for pleasure is only an attempt to distract themselves from boredom. Boredom is the manifestation of the shallowness of being alive. When you have a purpose your life is fixed upon, let the accomplishment of this purpose saturate your thoughts, then you shall see that certain thoughts of attaining shallow pleasures will no longer have the best of you, except you don't have a burning hunger to achieve this purpose as soon as possible. When you have such a goal, you shall realize how priceless your time is and never will you want to spend it on activities that bring to profound effect. The young man played gamble with his strength because he had not real ambitions to utilize it in saving his people. He knew he was born with strength but was not ambitious enough to realize the freedom of his people depended on him. When a man is in love, he tends to see the face of his lover on everything he looks at, simply because this lover of theirs has occupied a good portion of his heart. So shall you have your purpose occupy a good portion of your heart such that, even in the presence of lustful triggers, you will have your mind think the things it should and never the things it should not. This is usually a height of self-control that takes time and continuous efforts to attain. Till you get there, always try your best in avoiding the triggers so you don't get to exhaust your self-discipline and be forced to relapse. It must be noted that the activities people engage in just for the pleasure does not end in lust. Constant indulgence in consumption of substances because it makes you feel some kind of way at the moment is equally among them. Doing things that are not in line with your purpose, not having a proper balance between your time for fun and time for work will not give you a good life either.